What's up, guys? Welcome back to another great episode of Beerfield Fantasy Shots. I'm your bartender tonight, Dan Theory at Theory of BFF. As always, it's Thursday. Anything can fucking happen. It's my last Thursday before I start my new work schedule, thus fucking up everything with their Beerfield Fantasy Shots. But before I jump into our content, we'll do quick shout outs to my co-hosts. Behind me, as you can see in the background, is Nick Sparts at Nick Sparts doing work watching the football game right before halftime sits. Updated score 20-0 Ravens. Joe Flacco just got knocked out with a concussion though. Sitting at home, probably half fallen asleep to this game, is Chris Hopper at Hot BFF with 2 P's. So for my last segment on Thursday, I want to have a little bit of fun here. Do a Dynasty Outlook. I really wish I would have thought of this sooner, but a Dynasty Outlook for the 2017 quarterback class. This was considered a mediocre class with some decent upside. Your top 4 quarterbacks, obviously Watson, Trubisky, Mahomes, and Kaiser. All were considered good upside, a lot of potential, but needed to wait at least a year. At least one of those quarterbacks proved that to be true. One of those quarterbacks proved that to be fairly wrong. The other 2 just hasn't been given the chance. Well, I'll go a little more in depth with those 4 main quarterbacks, while mentioning some of the ones that have stood out. Guys like Bethard and Peterman, who could have chances. Bethard obviously starting as one of the 4 rookie quarterbacks that's starting right now. Even though Kaiser may be in and out. And then we'll go through some of the backups that may take over some of those roles next year, at least be competing for jobs. So we're going to jump into it. Obviously, the main one is Deshaun Watson. He was the show's ranked 4th quarterback. We saw some weakness. We didn't think he'd take this massive of a leap. He was considered the most pro-ready quarterback. I agreed with that. This is why I like at least the Texans targeted the right quarterback for what they were doing when they traded up to take him. He's considered the most pro-ready, like I said. A decently big arm, very mobile, very smart when it comes to running with the football for the most part. A lot of the weaknesses that we saw, though, were his inconsistencies with accuracy, his inconsistencies with his decision-making, and normally his one-look read and then run. Now, a lot of that could come to how Clemson wanted to run their scheme and stuff like that, which is why I kind of took that into into consideration as is that really truly a weakness, or is that scheming for that offense. And Watson's proved us all wrong. He's made big strides in his decision making. He's made big strides in showing that he can be more than just a one-read quarterback. Oftentimes, if you go back and watch his games, he'll look left, look right, back and forth, and he'll run. Sometimes he will just tuck in and run as it's almost a designed play. But he's done a lot more than what we expected coming into this season. I know he's the QB5. Before their bye week last week, weeks 5 and 6, he was the #1 QB in both of those weeks. Touchdown upside, running touchdown upside. We didn't expect to blow up with the passing touchdowns. We expect those numbers to come down, but this is a Dynasty Outlook. What do we like from going forward? Well, the Texans re-signed, or at least extended out, both Hopkins and Fedorowicz, his #1 receiver and his #1 tight end. Hopkins was extended out for 5 years, Fedorowicz for 3 years. You take into consideration Will Fuller, who's on his 2nd year of his rookie deal, 2 more years for sure, and then an option 3rd year, which would be his 5th year. If he can stay healthy, this is a great 1-2 punch for the Texans and for Watson. Watson, at least when you go back to Clemson, he fucking fed Mike Williams. I went back and checked when I did my Hopkins deep dive and to see what his outlook would look like for this year with Watson playing. Watson fed Mike Williams. It's hard to really get notes on targets, but he was 25% of his yards, his completions, and his touchdowns, 25% or more went to Williams, and we've seen that with Hopkins this year. Hopkins, I believe, still leads the league in target shares amongst all of his targets on his team. You take Will Fuller completely capitalizing on his touchdown chances, and the outlook looks great. They sold Lamar Miller. They drafted Deonta Foreman, who's been inconsistent this year, but at least gives them a 1-2 punch to take pressure off of Watson. So what is the value for Watson right now? He was drafted as typically the first quarterback in all rookie drafts. Most of these rookies, and all of them, were considered third-round picks. Kaiser was more of a fourth round, a little bit. But it looks like Watson right now is considered, to me, is considered a first-round pick. Coupled right in at the back end of the first round. Um, and that would be what it would cost to get him if you wanted to pay for him. It's I'm not I'm not huge into paying for rookie quarterbacks. I would rather pay for more veteran quarterbacks, especially for contending teams. Um, so if you drafted him, great job. You look like you have a decent quarterback for the future. There is one note. He is still fairly inconsistent with his accuracy, but he's a rookie. Most of those are like that too. And plus mechanics and footwork is always a thing. That's always going to be a thing for generally 95% of all quarterbacks. We're going to move on to arguably the worst quarterback that we've seen so far, Deshaun Kaiser. A lot of this is on him, holding on to the football too long, big weakness coming out of college, inconsistent decision making, still a big weakness that he had from college. Um, his accuracy is inconsistent, something that we saw obviously in college as well, and being drafted by the Browns, who I thought had, did a hell of a job in the draft this year, and then they went and completely flipped it on us. Hugh Jackson looks to probably be done after this season, if not mid-season, if they continue to lose. And Kaiser just really wasn't given a chance. Losing your left tackle and Joe Thomas for the season doesn't help. Losing your number one receiver and Corey Coleman for the majority of the year doesn't help. They may be able to get him back soon, which is great for Kaiser. But if Jackson gets let go, bring in a new coach. A new head coach would really bring in his own coaching staff, and will probably end up drafting another quarterback. So Kaiser looks to be done, potentially, at least as a starter. He's got zero value. I wouldn't be shocked if there's people out there that rage dropped him in Dynasty Leagues. If you really want to go out and get him, you can. I don't really like him much going forward. I'm going to hold on to him just in case he does get it together. Brian Kelly, his head coach with Notre Dame, was absolutely right that Kaiser should have waited a year. My guess is he wanted to capitalize on the success from the 2015 season, and he thought this was his best chance of being drafted in the first round. I'm not sure. But for that, that's all I want to say on Kaiser. You're still one of my favorites. I still love your upside, but not with Cleveland at this moment. Next is Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell kissing titties Trubisky. Drafted by the Bears, second pick overall. Very controversial move up to take him. He was considered probably, at least I would think, a little bit higher upside than Mahomes, if not a little lower, if not on par. Very, very good last year with UNC. His big knack was his mechanics, footwork, and his lack of experience. Drafted by the Bears, as I said, to back up Mike Glennon. They wanted to let Trubisky sit, learn, be molded by Mike fucking Glennon for some reason. Glennon obviously sucked. Trubisky played pretty fucking well in the preseason. Should have earned that starting job early. Eventually earned it. Has looked good. Outside of his game against Minnesota, he's been really given. He's not asked to do anything, which doesn't help for his true dynasty outlook. If you look at the team itself, though, no receivers. Kevin White, unfortunately, his entire career is plagued by injuries and some flashes at times. Kendall Wright, whatever, and then the plethora of receivers that seem to come and go. Zach Miller is a decent tight end, which I don't expect for him to keep next year. Drafting Adam Shaheen helps as a molded upside, but Shaheen, a lot like these quarterbacks, it's going to take time to develop. So then they have the running backs. So Jordan Howard continues to be a pretty fucking good running back. He's not extremely efficient, but he is their only offense at this point. Tariq Cohen is a great gadget type of running back that helps bring a different dynamic to this team, which helps Trubisky as just another weapon that he can check down to or throw to or whatever. So his outlook, his value right now is right about where it was. I would put it going into this season. Just his lack of being able to get actual chances to throw the football. As I said, I believe last week he had 7. He had 7 pass attempts. And I think against the Ravens he had 13 or 16, some ridiculous number. So it's hard to judge. I expect the Bears to go heavy wide receiver in the offseason, in free agency, and in the draft. I expect them to put more weapons around them, a lot like what the Eagles did with Wentz in this year. Uh, and I expect we'll see more of Trubisky's true outlook next year. If you're willing to pay a third-round price for maybe a second-rounder, um, depending on where your pick will land, if you believe in him and you want a decently high upside quarterback, Trubisky is worth that pick. Last is Patrick Mahomes, the only quarterback of the big four did not play this season. He looked pretty good in the preseason, made a lot of big plays. Um, he is your pinnacle. Aaron Rodgers meets Johnny Manziel. They get fucking hammered, have a baby, and they pop out or poop out. Patrick Mahomes, extremely mobile. We've went in depth on him when we did our rookie quarterback overview. The only thing that's hurting him is the fact that Alex Smith is having a career year. They draft Mahomes, obviously. They traded up to get him, I believe, with the 10th pick. Maybe Ron, apologize if I am. But they traded up, they drafted him, they put pressure on Alex Smith, as this could have been his last year with the Chiefs. What does he do? He responds with on pace for all positive quarterback statistics for a season. It looks like he's going to be a career year in yards, completion percentage, touchdowns, lows. He hasn't thrown a pick this year. It's what he's on right now is unbelievable. It's not terrible for Mahomes from an NFL standpoint because it looks like he'll probably sit another year. What we saw with Rodgers was fantastic. In terms of Dynasty Outlook, though, its value it's not tumbling because you expected this when you drafted him. It's just with the way that Alex Smith has played and with the kind of not great options that he can throw to. I mean, his weapons here will be the same with what Smith has, and that's Kelsey, Hill, and Hunt. The emergence of Demarcus Robinson is nice, but we have to see more from that. I expect them, like the Bears, will draft another weapon or two to either give to Smith or to Mahomes. But it looks like Mahomes will probably wait another year unless the Chiefs use Smith's career year as a trading point to move up. Maybe trade him to a team, let him go for some reason. This is a quarterback that if I'm looking to trade for, it's him. Because of what we've seen, we don't know what we'll get yet. The value so probably is a late second, 2018 late second, maybe an early third, depending if you want to go in that route. This year's quarterback class looked to be better, but as of recently, that's starting to take a tumble. And Mahomes is not a bad option. So those are your top main four quarterbacks. These are the only quarterbacks that were typically drafted in most rookie leagues. Some were sprinkled around here and there based on homers, based on the depth of the rookie drafts. So we're going to move on to a couple quarterbacks here. One of them starting already, and the other one had a chance to start who I thought outplayed the person that started ahead of him. So we'll start with CJ Beathard. Plays for the 49ers. I believe he was a fifth or sixth round pick, I believe, from Kyle Shanahan's new regime. Got the start last week. Got fucking butt fucked. He came into relief for Brian Hoyer against Washington. Looked halfway competent. He's out of Iowa. He's one of the quarterbacks I didn't watch. As there was 10 of them I watched, and you didn't make the cut. Not your prototypical quarterback. Got a noodle arm, not very athletic, though he's looked a little bit more than I expected. I think he's just a placeover until next year where they'll probably attack the quarterback position a lot heavier. Maybe they'll try to attack it in free agency, but they have so many pieces that this draft they want to let in Shanahan mold him is what they'll do. But for his actual outlook, if you have him, and if someone wants to give you a pick for him, I mean, it's better than what you did. You probably picked him up like I did, like what most people did. If you get a pick for him, great. Otherwise, who the fuck cares? I don't like his outlook. I don't like a lot of these guys' outlooks, but when you get down to this point, it's where's the potential? So moving on to Nathan Peterman, the backup to Tyrod Taylor in Buffalo. I believe he outplayed Tyrod in the preseason. What Buffalo did suggested that they were going to move on from Tyrod. I firmly believe they try to entice teams to trade for Tyrod. Problem is he's not a very good quarterback, and no one probably wants to give up a lot for him, if anything, for him in terms of draft picks. When you trade Sammy Watkins, the biggest reason why Tyrod had some decent passing numbers, you start to question what they wanted to do. The fact that Peterman fit better with the receivers they had on that roster at the time made even more sense. But they're not in tank mode. They played fairly well. A tad more inconsistent on the defensive as of recently, but they've been decent. As for Peterman's outlook, though, if they decide to move away from Tyrod, Peterman becomes the then known starter for next year. I assume they'll bring somebody in if that's the case, maybe even draft another quarterback. But as of right now, Peterman, for next year, if Tyrod goes, I expect him to be in more competition for a starting role. Moving on, last three quarterbacks here, these are going to be very quick. All three of these guys could potentially be battling for the starting quarterback job next year. The reason not this year is either aging quarterbacks, injuries, whatever. Three names: Davis Webb for the Giants, Joshua Dobbs for the Steelers, and Chad AK-47 Kelly from the Broncos. We'll start with Davis Webb. Right now, he's the third string quarterback on this Giants roster behind obviously Eli Manning and Geno Smith. Eli Manning has been in trade. It's been in trade rumors over the last week or so. I don't think he'll get traded. He could move on next year. He could end up being so pissed he retires. This would give in line Geno Smith and Davis Webb that quarterback competition if that were to happen. I would expect if the Giants were to lose Manning, that they would draft a quarterback or bring another one in to help not lose much in this offense. AKA if they move Eli to Jacksonville over maybe for Blake Bortles with a pick or some crazy shit like that. Moving on to Joshua Dobbs. All these quarterbacks, by the way, you can just pick them up if you have any faith in them. Moving on to Joshua Dobbs for Pittsburgh. Right now, he is the backup to Big Ben. If you watch preseason at all, you realize how fucking terrible Josh Dobbs looked in the preseason. He looked completely lost. This was, of course, without Le'Veon Bell and at times minimal Antonio Brown, but he still looked fucking horrible. If Big Ben does decide to retire, I fully expect him to draft a quarterback, and I fully expect him to bring in another quarterback. But if they don't go in both of those directions, Dobbs could have a chance to compete for this job. God may help us all, especially Brown owners, Juju Smith owners. This is why if you own a Pittsburgh player at this point, not the worst idea to maybe try to sell him. Dynasty, hopefully if you're going to sell Bell or Brown, you get a decent amount for him. Anyway, so moving on to our last quarterback, Chad AK-47. Chad AK-47 Kelly, that's weird to say. He is the nephew of Jim Kelly, good friend of John Elway. It's why John Elway made him the Mr. Irrelevant pick in this year's draft. Chad Kelly was the last pick of this year's draft. In terms of talent, he's up there with the big four. Biggest issue is where he got his nickname. A lot of off-the-field issues, a lot of injuries. Not surprised he's on IR right now. But in terms of talent-wise, he can compete. If he can get together, stay healthy, have a good mentor in John Elway, who is good friends with said uncle, he has a chance. And you look what Simeon has done so far has been completely fucking garbage. Very inconsistent. Paxton Lynch hasn't really been much of anything. That first round mark is the only thing he's still holding on. He's been hurt, so he hasn't had a huge chance, but he had a chance to take the starting job this year in preseason, and he lost it in like week 2 or 3 to said Trevor Simeon. So Chad can stay healthy. Start of next year, maybe they don't bring anybody in, maybe they don't draft anybody. Maybe they want to roll with Simeon, Lynch, and Kelly. Kelly, I believe, has a decent chance to take over this job. Though I do expect him to bring somebody in. I don't expect Simeon to be a part of this roster next year. or Paxton Lynch. They could probably let Kelly go if they don't like what they see. But as of right now, if they're all healthy and minds are straight, I'm going with Chad Kelly in this with this offense. That's all I got for the quarterbacks. If there's some I missed, maybe there is. Obviously, things can change in the next few weeks. Things will definitely change in the offseason. This is what I believe their outlook is right now. Just a minute here, I'm going to record the news part of this section. I'll give you guys a quick update on the game itself, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.